Hi, Amanda.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Welcome. Come on in.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming by today.
No problem.
And thanks for having me in for the lesson observation the other day.
Of course.
I got your reflection on the lesson, and so I take it you got my script notes that I sent you, and I also sent you the questions that I had asked students about their understanding.
Right.
You got that too? And then we had Dave help out with some video, and you've had a chance to look over the video too? Yeah? Great, lots of things to look at.
That's right.
It was great to be in there, so I'm really glad to have this opportunity to take you through a reflection on your lesson.
Okay.
And that's what this is about. It's a conference to build reflection and to let you explore the student learning results that you had in that lesson. So, do you have any questions as we start?
No, I think I'm all set.
Okay, good. So first off, I'll just ask you, how did the lesson go? If you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being an ideal lesson, where do you think this lesson fell?
I think it was an 8.5.
Okay, and why do you say that?
I think the lesson had flowed well. I think there's great transitions from the students. A variety of activities for the students to work on and to practice their understanding. I think when I watched the video and when I looked at your scripting of some of the questions that you gave the students, I was able to see that students had a good understanding of the concept. They also had a good understanding of a concept that I was bringing back for them with the minds on at the beginning of the lesson. So that was reassuring for me that students were engaged and were able to communicate what they were doing.
Did you feel all students met the objective of the lesson?
They did.
Okay. And how do you know?
I know because at the end, well, first of all, the data from the video captured students collaborating, discussing their ideas in terms of the balancing equations, and it was just great to see their dialogue and their use of vocabulary in terms of the task that they were working on. At the end with the exit slip, it was a similar question from what they were working on. And so Socrative is this free data collection online web thing, and basically what it allows you to do is to create some type of assessment, check-in, exit slip, and then it collects all the data for you. And so mine was just a similar question to what the students had been working on, and so they were able to input their answers and all of them got them correct. However, when I look back at their math journals where they did the actual computation, it was interesting to see that there were various levels of understanding in terms of how to solve for the equation, how to solve for that one variable, how to balance the equation. And so
was the exit question just was it just an algebraic question, or did it have a model? I can't remember. Did it have a visual model as well that students had?
It did. It was a visual. So it was a visual question that had some shapes.
Right.
And so students had to answer the question of, what is one pencil weigh in terms of these paper clips. Okay. And so going forward, I could see that some students went right to just using variables and quickly solved the equation. Some students didn't make any notes, and some students went to use, shapes. And so that was really interesting to me in terms of where their level of understanding was. So
in what ways did they meet or not meet your expectations?
They met my expectations by, showing me that they can solve it. They didn't meet my expectations because we did have a process of being able to articulate mathematically what you're doing and why you're doing the process to either side of the pan balance. And so some students, just were able to look at it and just, I feel like they looked at it, they mentally computed it, or they did some trial and error and were able to get the answer, whereas other students followed the procedure and the organization that we had practiced and put in place.
Can you share some of the things you noticed that led you to those, where you saw those made those observations? So this is from the video evidence that Dave was into videotape students and focusing on some of their conversations and some of what you were doing too, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Words and then showing it mathematically. Questions about what we're working on? Questions about what your job is? Okay, you can get started.
Okay, so should I'll draw these out first because that's what you have to do to show like what we're taking away from one.
Just put like 6 and then
Yeah.
See, that clip there shows the one student who, you know, clearly is understanding what needs to be done, but is still using those manipulatives, right? That's
right.
What's working for her. Whereas he's able to translate, and you don't need that. You just put in the numeric value, basically.
What are some thoughts about, as we wrap up this conversation today? First, do you feel like you have good next steps in terms of what you've taken away from the lesson?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Yeah, I have a good plan in place.
How about this process of reflecting on your lesson and you know, working with a supervisor on that? What are some thoughts about how it's impacted your teaching?
I mean, I think, I'm assuming, all teachers reflect. I mean, whether it's like done really organically after a lesson, like that was great, it wasn't, or whether it's strategic, like what the process that I've been through, I think having another set of eyes and ears is super helpful. And so in even having the video, it's like, okay, you know, you get to see all facets of the classroom, what everyone's doing,
right.
what's happening. And so it's been really helpful. It's been, you know, affirming to me with some of the student responses, watching some of the student interactions. But then it's also, you know, this data piece, you know, where I might not have had the student response. If I didn't have the video, I would just look at this, the procedural piece, and just focus on that. Whereas here, now I can go forward and say, okay, you know, students who I wasn't sure how they were doing, yeah, they are understanding it, or seeing the video and watching certain interactions and going, yeah, those are good pairings. So going forward with that, I'm going to continue with those pairings or this task or whatever it may be.
Right. Are there ways that I can help you going forward? What would be, if I were to come in for an observation again, what would be helpful to you?
I think the student questioning was helpful just to get their perspective. And I mean, coming in again, I mean, I could give you a list of a few names and, you know, just not targeting students, but just maybe probing those students a little bit more just to give me a better understanding of, you know, how they're doing or what their perspective is.
Okay. I have some set questions that